Now, True Detective, it is one of the more formidable HBO shows of the past decade. You know, the first season of 2014 was really successful from a critical standpoint. It ended up on many critics' best of lists of that particular year. Many regarded it as one of the best TV shows of 2014. And ultimately, I think, in hindsight, many people regard it as one of the best television shows of the TV prestige era, really of the past 25 years. I would certainly agree with that. The subsequent seasons, however, have provided, I would say, at best, a divisive reaction. I've watched every
Mm,
entry of True Detective. Season
mm-hmm.
2 isn't great. Definitely a step down. Season 3, a little bit of a step up, but didn't reach the heights of season 1 for me. But Mahershala Ali was pretty excellent in that particular entry. And now we're a full, I think, maybe 5 years removed from that last entry of True Detective, maybe even 6 years. It's been a while since it's been on the air. And of course, Jodie Foster, lots of star power coming back to star in this show. It's been very much anticipated, very much, sort of talked about for the past year that they've been really promoting and marketing this show. I got a chance to check out all 6 episodes of this new entry. Before I dive in, though, what's your relationship with True Detective? What are your thoughts on, this season, what they've tried to do, or even just like previous iterations of the show? And how are you overall, sort of how has your relationship developed with the show over the course of the past few years?
Yeah, it's one of those shows that you just know. It's HBO always has multiple shows that's like bangers at a time. You know what I mean? True Detective has just always been one of those, I think, reoccurring ones that I've watched and known about. So I've also seen the first 3 seasons. I haven't caught the fourth season yet, man. But it's always been like a show I just know I'm gonna watch. It's not a big overhaul. It's always those 8 episodes. It's never anything too crazy, but I always appreciate. I think the detective work that they bring to the table. In the spirit of HBO, of the spirit of these 1 hour really dramatized kind of detective stories, man. I kind of feel similar to you. Of course, that first season, was a banger. Second season, yeah, it is what it is. And third season, Mahershala is Mahershala. You know what I mean? And so I have a very similar take on the seasons in that way as well. But man, it's always been kind of a mainstay for HBO, and hopefully it will be even after season 4. But I'm still excited to watch season 4. I know it's shorter than the others, right? I think it's only like 6 episodes if I seen right. But yeah, excited to get into it, man. But yeah, excited to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I was looking forward to this a lot, just because the chatter around the show before it came out, critics got to see, I think, all 6 episodes before it debuted. There was a lot of praise, a lot of anticipation, a lot of praise for what this new entry brought. Many were saying it was the best installment since the original season. So I was very much looking forward to it because of that, and because of Jodie Foster. She's extraordinary, obviously. And
Mm-hmm.
watched it week to week, and I gotta be honest, I was disappointed by it. It did not match the heights of what I wanted it to be, or at least what my perception of it would be. It certainly has its high points. It has its moments that definitely gripped me. I think what does work is the fact that it does try to really get back to the spirit of what the first season with Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson achieved with that. You
Mm-hmm.
obviously get this pairing of these two very opposite detectives, who have to come together and work together and overcome their differences. There's the looming threat of the occult out there. There's some potential supernatural implications, some Lovecraftian implications, all that stuff that made True Detective so singular and unique when it came out, that they really lean into. They even go as far in this new installment to make some direct callbacks to the first season, some direct tie-ins,
Mm.
and that was one thing that I was like excited to see, like where it would go. Unfortunately, it doesn't really go anywhere. I think that they just kind of like introduce these elements and don't really pay them off in any significant way. And I think for me, it didn't really amount to a worthwhile, truly satisfying experience. I think what does work is the acting across the board is pretty phenomenal. Jodie Foster, of course, is exceptional, and she's playing. I think what's interesting is that she's kind of playing a version of Clarice from Silence of the Lambs. Like there's
Hmm.
definitely an homage to that character, and I
Okay.
really like that. But really, I think the revelation here is Callie Rice, who plays, sort of her partner in the show. She's phenomenal. I hadn't really seen her in anything before, I don't believe, and so she comes in as a character that's meant to be diametrically opposed to the character that Jodie Foster is playing, and so to see them play off of each other throughout the course of the 6 episodes was really good. And I will give them credit, and Issa Lopez in particular, for fleshing out the lives of these characters as well, like outside of their detective work. I think that that's one thing that the other entries don't really do. A lot of what True Detective has been about has been the obsession with the crime, the obsession with solving the mystery or the murder that's at hand, or whatever's taking shape. This one does take it a step further to really try to unpack and examine their personal lives, and some of that stuff I really enjoyed. But I do think that potentially sacrifice the really interesting elements of what could have been there from a true crime detective sort of mystery. And what I also will say is that I found that watching this on a week to week basis might not have been the most optimal way to watch this, because I think a lot of the praise that's come from critics are coming from critics who got to binge it all at once and see the ending,
Mm,
pretty much as soon as they started it. Whereas on a week to week basis, as we're watching it as audience members, we have to wait. And for the conclusion and what they did with the finale, it didn't really feel all that worth it. It didn't feel truly satisfying. It kind of felt, I think, anticlimactic, especially when you invest 6 weeks into a serialized crime drama. But that just might be the nature of these types of shows. I mean, anybody who watches any serialized sort of crime drama, you probably have to deal with this. That, hey, maybe the ending and the payoff to this big unraveling mystery isn't really going to be worth it. I mean, we got to be honest. Like, the first season of True Detective is great, but I'm not a fan of the ending, and I don't think many people are. Like, the ending
mm-hmm.
kind of botched a lot of
Yeah.
the show. That doesn't take away from all of the extraordinary stuff that they achieved in the previous 7 episodes, but that final episode was a
Mm-hmm.
little underwhelming, and this is not all that different. But even beyond the final episode, the whole experience for me wasn't as satisfying as I wanted it to be. So I kind of walked away a little bit disappointed, oftentimes confused as well. Like, I wasn't even totally clear and totally aware of what was happening at every single moment. It was a little confusing at points, and so maybe one day I'll revisit it and be able to binge it, and hopefully that creates a better viewing experience. But as the way that I watched it is the way that most people watched it, it kind of fell flat for me, unfortunately. What is really interesting though about this is that prior to the season, True Detective at HBO was definitely in a state of confusion and potentially peril. I think that they were very concerned about the direction and the future of the show. The first 3 seasons, while they are considered prestige TV and have often been acclaimed as great dramas, not a ton of people watch True Detective. It's not like the most watched thing ever. And I think coming into the season, they wanted to do a really hard creative reset on what the future and the direction of the show might be. And so a lot really rode on this season and the success of the season. And it turned out that Night Country is the most watched True Detective season thus far. The season finale was the most watched episode of any episode in this season, and they immediately renewed it for season 5. And also, in addition to that, they went so far as to kind of change direction in the course of the show, because Issa Lopez is stepping in and sort of replacing Nick Pizzolatto, who created the original True Detective and also directed and wrote on the subsequent second and third seasons. And so they have
Mm-hmm.
shifted gears quite a lot. But that's also created this really weird internet discourse that's happening. Nick Pizzolatto has been on Instagram a lot throughout the course of the season, sort of bashing just the direction of it, and removing any blame that can be placed on criticism, saying that he's not involved at all. He's reposted very negative comments from people who've watched the show. Some of it may deem it as misogynistic, because a lot of the
Mm.
commentary comes from just mostly men. And Issa
Mm-hmm.
Lopez has taken this in strides, and she's been really graceful. She hasn't said anything that I think it's out of pocket. But Nick Pizzolatto, he's kind of taking the low road, if I'm being honest with you. But what do you think about just like that dynamic, like the fact that that's like a whole conversation piece around the show? And in spite of that, really, it didn't deter away from any of the success, because people still watch it, and now we're going to get future iterations of it from Issa Lopez herself, who's going to lead the next installment.
Wow, that's that I didn't know any of that, and that's pretty crazy. Maybe yeah, no. It kind of sucks that he's taking, I think, the low road, in that way. It seems like he's upset beyond just that, right? It seems like, maybe he wanted to do more with this True Detective thing, or he didn't want to be associated with the bad True Detective thing. He's like, look, y'all, this is not me. And I understand that point of view, but I think to continue to hammer it on the head and kind of continue down the path of you know, again, it's just too much. I think that's the way it's just too much. And so I wish he wasn't doing all that. But I think at the end of the day, man, it's we gotta look forward to more to more seasons of True Detective and hoping that it gets better. And maybe they'll give him another shot at another season one day. But until then, man, you just gotta let it go. You gotta take it. Sometimes you gotta take the L in peace, bro. Just
Oh,
let it go.
I doubt they give him any chance. I can't see that happening with what he's done. But the weird thing is that he's still an executive producer on the show, which doesn't mean really anything. All that it means is that he's
Hmm.
getting paid. You know, he's still getting paid for what's coming out.
That's true.
So it's kind of just, I don't know. It's an interesting stance to take to like publicly bash something, and you're still getting checks, you know, from that very
From
property
that thing.
that you
Hmm.
created. And Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson are also still getting paid, but they're quiet. Like why say anything? It's passive income at this point. Like you're just making money
Hmm.
off of something that was very, very monumental when it came out, and now it just has new life and it's going to continue. And you think that somebody would be proud of it, even if they don't agree with the direction of where it's going. But he's certainly not taking that stance. He is absolutely trying to remove himself from any conversation related to Night Country. But I think ultimately, for me, I'm happy, even despite how I feel about the season. And it's just my personal feelings. Like most people love this season. Most people think that
Hmm.
is great. But me personally, it didn't work. But even despite that, I'm just glad that True Detective as a franchise will continue for HBO. I think it's important that we still have
Yeah.
this continue because of what it's done for all these years and the fact that it is like a mainstay now. It is one of their big brands, and now you know it can be considered maybe one of their more popular brands since more people did watch this show. So I'm just glad that they're going to get another chance at it and do an additional season with Issa Lopez, and hopefully she can come back and do something again that's really creative and interesting and worthwhile with watching. But we'll certainly have to see. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on the brand new True Detective season, Night Country. If you've checked this out on HBO, hit us up and let us know what you think.